Hey, welcome. You've just turned into the Grow Wire podcast. I'm your host, Jason Maynard, and today's episode features Thad Luckinbill. He's one of the producers of Sicario and the now in theaters Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. But before you get to all that, today's episode is brought to you by Ring. If you don't know Ring, it's the video doorbell for your smartphone. Their products are based on a simple principle. Use your Wi-Fi to create a ring of security around your house. Probably seen this out in the wild before. I've actually got one. You can make sure nobody's stealing your packages off the porch, or the neighbor kids aren't doing things that you don't want your neighbor kids doing in front of your house. All sorts of practical uses. But Ring makes it safe, makes it easy for you. You can get an HD video stream of the person and tell them to drop your package off or tell them to get off your front lawn. It's your choice. All within the power of your Ring smartphone. Now, Grow Wire listeners can get their hands on a Ring Video Doorbell 2 at a discounted price. We negotiated with the folks at Ring and were able to secure a very special promo. So if you go to ring.com and use the promo code GROW20RING at checkout, you'll get $20 off a Video Doorbell 2. Do it fast. This promotion only lasts through the end of July. This episode is also sponsored by our friends at Blue Microphones. Everybody has a story to tell. I'm using a Blue mic right now. And if you're a storyteller, you probably know Blue Mics for their iconic Yeti microphone. It's helped millions of people find and amplify their voices. If you're thinking about creating a podcast, like me, check out Blue's new Yeticaster. It's the complete mic and boom arm system ready to connect to your laptop. Brings the ultimate broadcast studio setup to your home or office. Visit bluedesigns.com and use the code PODCAST at checkout for a special price. I also want to make sure you head over to the Grow Wire blog at www.growwire.com. That's GROWWIRE.com, where you'll find more great growth stories and stories about all sorts of things. Our profile story this week I want you to check out. It features the founder of Bee Toffee. Once just a local candy company, it's now exploded onto the national whole food scene. The founder started in her own kitchen and now has a multi-city operation and a big e-commerce brand. Her growth story is one that'll stick with you. Get it? Stick with you like toffee? It's a free podcast. What do you guys expect? Okay. The jokes don't cost anything. Anyways, head over to growwire.com to check it out. You'll also be able to catch the latest episode of the Grow Wire show featuring the one and only Magic Johnson. Yep, we sat down with the Laker legend to discuss his transition from the court to becoming a successful businessman. You're going to learn a lot about magic you probably didn't know. It's a very cool show, so check it out.
You're listening to the Grow Wire podcast, a place where you'll learn the ins and outs of growing a business, running a business, or even taking your big idea, career, or personal development to the next level. It's all possible. Our host, Jason Maynard, the SVP of Marketing at Oracle NetSuite and the Editor-in-Chief of GrowWire.com, will take you on an exploration of growth through candid conversations with some of the most brilliant minds in entrepreneurship, entertainment, business development, and more. Whatever your goal, we know you'll walk away with the right tools to help fuel your own personal journey of growth.
All right, on Grow Wire, I'm really excited about today's episode with Thad Luckinbill. He is an actor, produced the big hit Sicario back in 2015. And the sequel, Sicario, Day of the Soldado, is now out in the theaters. I like saying that, Day of the Soldado. Thad and I chat about the ins and outs of producing a film, his style for doing that, and how it might even help you in business. There's a lot of interesting, I think, applications from launching an idea and turning it into a movie into everyday business. So check it out. I think you're going to like it. All right, welcome everybody to the Grow Wire podcast. I'm excited today to have with me the one and the only, lovely and talented, Thad Luckinbill. Thad, welcome, man.
Thank you. That's a great introduction there.
You feel
like
good.
That.
You feel good about that.
I
right?
do. Only a friend would actually introduce me that way.
Lovely and talented.
Yeah.
Well, you are lovely and talented.
You try.
You got to own it. You got to own it. Well, I'm excited today because you've had a pretty amazing career so far. In the entertainment world, and obviously acting and producing, and so tell us a little bit about kind of what you're doing these days.
Well, part of the reason this was such a good idea to do it this week is we actually have a film coming out, a sequel to Sicario. It's called Sicario, Day of the Soldado, and that comes out on Friday. So it's good timing. But I have a company called Black Label Media, which I've been a partner of for the last probably 4 or 5 years. And we've just been making independent films, trying to find the space. We've done movies like Sicario, and more famously La La Land was something we were a part of. Yeah. And then we've done some small movies like Demolition. Only the Brave was one that came out last year, as well as 12 Strong with Chris Hemsworth. So we're just making movies and trying to get people to go see them.
Well, you've got a fascinating background. So
Yeah.
How did you end up working in the entertainment business? You came from your Oklahoma boy.
Yeah. I moved out, so I went to college, University of Oklahoma, studied finance, and then I moved out to LA probably in '99, and then I was working for a producer, which was what I wanted to do right after college. I wanted to try to use my business degree to make films, to be involved in the entertainment business. I always liked it. And then I kind of stumbled into an acting career, believe it or not. It's a long story. I'm not sure you want to hear it now, but
we're going to cover that. We're definitely going to cover that.
But yeah, so that was sort of how I got my start out here. And I had an internship with a producer who was a friend of my father's, and that lasted for about 1 year to 2 years. And then while I had been sort of studying acting at night, and then that kind of took off and took me in a different direction.
So when you're growing up in Oklahoma, I mean, how do you decide? Like, what was the thing? Whether was it when you were younger or in high school or college that you decided you want to come to LA?
Well, so my mom and 2 older sisters have their degrees. They have master's degrees in music education, that sort of. So growing up, I was always involved. My mom would do direct plays for community and church and things like that, and I was always involved in different productions. Like they just plugged me in. Here, you and your brother stand here and say this, and then my sisters got really involved with it. My older sister went to OCU, which is the Performing Arts School in Oklahoma. And Christy Chenoweth was her classmate, who's done really well out here. And so I grew up just going to their plays, and I was always fascinated with it. I thought, I think because of my mom, I got a little bit of the creativity and the art side. My father, being sort of a businessman, he owns a family company that he took over from his father, but he also is kind of a scientist in a way. He has his PhD in mechanical engineering, worked for NASA. So I got a little bit of split brain. I got his business sort of, science side, and I got my mom's creative, artistic side. And so I tried to merge the two, and where do you end up producing, right? you sort of end up producing there. But I basically just decided to follow, move out of Oklahoma after college and ended up here.
What's it like trying to break into LA in the entertainment business? I mean, it's like you hear all these stories about how hard and difficult and competitive, for everybody who, makes it, there's like 100 people who don't make it. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it's true. I mean, I think for me, fortunately, I either have a really bad memory or it's just really short term, one of the two, because you have to have thick skin, especially when it comes to the acting side. You go out for a million different projects and auditions, and you get, one of them. Yeah. And, you have to be willing to handle rejection and then keep your chin up and keep a positive attitude and continue to work and, stay disciplined, which is hard when you're in your 20s in LA, let me tell you. There's a lot of distractions out here. But, I think that's it. I mean, I think the people now, fast forwarding 15, 20 years, the people who I know who are still in it were always disciplined guys who constantly studied, always kept a good attitude, handled rejection well. Some people just don't handle rejection well. So those are the guys that are still around. And that's been an interesting study for me to see and watch this group of people.
It's more of a grind then, right?
It's a total grind.
Yeah,
total grind.
It's not as glamorous as it looks.
No, I mean, it's rewarding and it has its highlights, but there's a lot of I like to call it trench time. You're down in the trenches and you're doing the work and it's not pretty, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of hustle.
Yeah. Did you when you mentioned your father's family business? I mean, is that I would assume any family business is hard, right? Is that part of the work ethic or DNA that you sort of see and you extrapolate to working in entertainment?
Well, so my dad, I definitely credit him for a lot of things, and including education. He's a stickler for education and studying and working hard, discipline. But my grandfather was sort of he was the blue collar hard worker who taught us at an early age. Like, I remember, I think I was 13 or 14. I think it was 13 though. It was a summer, and my brother and I have a twin brother, and we were out riding our bikes. My granddad would come over and recruit us, because he was retired at the time, to do all the work for him, with him and for him. He was the foreman. We were the workers. And he came over, and we were riding our bikes around with our buddies, and he stopped us. And let me just stop really quickly and say, he was an amazing guy. Like, everybody loved him. He was the best guy in the world, but he was a hard worker, and he saw things black and white. So anyway, he stops and he goes, boys, let me tell you, I hope you enjoy your last summer. And we're like, what do you mean? He goes, you're working for your dad next summer. And so literally, as soon as school got out, the next day, I'm in Levi's, Red Wing boots and a white t-shirt, and I'm out there digging ditches and carrying cinder blocks on the job sites. And I did that from I think it was starting at 14 all the way through college, every summer. So it's like, it teaches you two things. One is, maybe you want to go to college and get an education, and then the other was, it taught you to really value your free time and enjoy what you have, because it was those were some hot summers.
It can't be easy. That's one of those things, right, where you look back and you're like, oh well, maybe it sucked at the time I was doing it. If you're 14, 15.
Oh yeah,
I hated it.
I know, but I honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was such a great lesson, and I wish kids could do it now. But we have all these crazy laws.
I don't think you're allowed to.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you can't. It's tough.
We got to find ways. That's interesting. So when you got out here and you were doing some of the acting classes at night, how did you end up getting a break? How did that become the thing that broke first versus being on the more of the business side?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the guy I was working for, a producer, it wasn't a huge company. It was good because I got in the rooms with him all the time, and I get to listen to the way he thought, his thought structure, and the way he sort of, even in meetings, which at bigger companies you would never have gotten in to sit through those. However, that being said, there were a lot of things that were started that were never finished, and it's just a slow process, So we actually never made anything while I interned for him or was at that company. And so while I was studying at night, so it was like a year after I'd gotten here, I was studying acting at night, and part of it was because I was dating a girl who was going to that acting class, and that's just what you do when you're 22 or 21 years old. I think I know the way it unfolded was I was taking the class more as a hobby. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I had done it a lot growing up, but I wasn't sure it was necessarily some path I wanted to take. But I enjoyed it. So we, once or twice a week, I would go to this class, and then we'd do what's called a showcase. And I remember one day, and the teacher liked me a lot. She thought, you got,
you're lovely and talented.
You're lovely and talented. You have a baseline of talent here, that needs to be refined. But if you put the work in, you might make something of it. So anyway, she had a showcase, and some managers and agents came. And then everybody does the scenes and stuff that they worked on. And after that was over, a couple of them were interested in signing me, and I ended up going with a company that's no longer around. Like, she's sort of a legend in the business, a woman named Iris Burton, who had like Joaquin Phoenix and River Phoenix and There's several others. I can't think of everybody right now, but anyway, she was sort of the young talent magnet at the time, and she's a legend. And she ended up merging with Endeavor, I think, is who she ended up being bought out by. But so anyway, once I got with them, they just started sending me on auditions, and I had auditioned for a soap opera. Maybe 6 months into it, and then they were interested, and then ended up, it was sort of supposed to be I ended up getting the role, but it was supposed to be a 2-week, 3-week role, ended up being, almost 10 years.
And this this was your first gig then?
It wasn't my first audition, but it was my first real gig, yeah. I mean, I'd done a couple, I did a non-union independent movie that was, we'll go without mentioning. It was terrible. But other than that, yeah, this was my first substantial, legitimate role. Yeah.
And what was it like working on a soap?
Well, it was fun. I mean, it was interesting. It wasn't like I got hired as, to compare it to basketball. It wasn't like I got, I wasn't the max contract guy. I wasn't the guy everybody sought out. I was literally a day player. I was a bench player. They'd bring him in for a couple of weeks to sort of support the storyline. And then, fast forward, I'm still there after 6 months, and I'm thinking, okay, every time I go was my last day. So for me, I enjoyed it. There was no pressure. Yeah. It wasn't like I was brought in as the contract guy who had to carry a storyline. I didn't have a contract. I was just the day. I loved it, actually. And so I every time I went, I thought it was my last show. And, that lasted 2 years maybe that way. And then they finally started pinning me down for a contract. And at that point, to make a long story short, I was in a different position acting-wise because I'd done a lot of network pilots and had gotten a lot of interest with nighttime TV, so I wasn't sure I wanted to sign, but ended up doing it eventually, and it was fun.
You had like from basketball, you had a couple 10-day contracts.
And
you kept it rolling.
Yeah,
until you got your guaranteed deal.
There you go. Yeah, to get back to the analogy. Yeah,
that's cool.
So yeah, it was fun, but it was actually a good gig in the way because when I wasn't under contract, I was able to go out and do anything and everything I wanted. So I was able to do. I did, I think I did 7 or 8 network pilots while I was on the show. I did, movies. I was in a movie with Ashton Kutcher called Just Married. So my point is they couldn't say no to me. So anytime another job came up, I got to take it. It was great. And I worked on, still to this day, one of my favorite things I've ever done was a sitcom called 8 Simple Rules with Katie Cuoco, but also John Ritter, who... So I did a year on that show, and I got to work with every legend, especially TV and sitcom legend you could possibly think of, from, Henry Winkler to John Ratzenberger and Cindy Williams and Sybil Shepherd and, you name it. Of course, Katie Seagal and John Ritter and James Garner. I mean, the list goes on. Peter Bogdanovich. I mean, there was like every legend of sitcom and TV you can think of. And so that was just an amazing experience.
Yeah. So you had a long run on the show, on the soap opera you were on was
Young and the Restless,
yeah. Right?
Yeah, I had a long run on it. Yeah, really long run.
If I recall, I think they just finally killed you off.
They finally killed me off, yeah. So
what's it like to be? I gotta ask you this. So what's it like to be killed off of a show? Is there like?
Well, it's not my first time.
Oh, that's true. It's a soap opera. You get killed multiple times.
I did, right? Yeah. I mean, look, there are highs and lows to a career. I mean, I had a recurring on Ballers that only lasted on HBO's Ballers that only lasted like an episode and a half. They completely cut my storyline before I got there on the first episode after they had hired me, and I'm like, oh, that's just the ups and downs you talk about. You're like,
it was a great episode.
Such a high. And I'm
episode.
Like, oh, I'm supposed to do like a handful of episodes, and I did 1.5. It was unfortunate. But anyway, yeah. So they killed me off. The worst scenario, though, even I'm just sitting here thinking about it, was when I did an episode of CSI, and it was they murdered me on the show. And I remember showing up, and I read the script. I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was like, you're killed or whatever. But I didn't read it that closely. I didn't read exactly how I get killed. So I drive all the way out to like Westlake, and we're out in the hills of Malibu, basically. And it was at night, and it was a night shoot. So I get ready at like 9. They bring me out to set at like 10:30. and we're driving down this old like dirt road with trees hanging over it. It was really eerie. Not a soul in sight. I mean, you can't imagine that's actually out here, but it is. And then we pull up, and there's all these lights focused on a fence. And I go and I sort of get out of the car and I walk, and it looks bad. And then I start to see there's like a guy hanging, suspended in a fence. And then I start to think, oh yeah, I remember reading something like, but I didn't. I did like I scanned it, and then I get there and I realize it's me. And then they have a mold of my head, decapitated, on a fence post. And I'm like looking at this. Essentially, it was really well done. I'm looking at this mold of my head, and I decapitated. It was the
Did it look
most
like you?
eerie. Completely like that. It was the most eerie feeling, especially walking up at night in those circumstances. So that's the worst thing I've ever done as far as
So it's not really
getting killed off a show. This was easy.
It's not the
somebody hit me over the head.
Yeah.
This was easy. Yeah.
That was nothing.
Yeah, this was like,
That's a one form of rejection, though, right? Is when they kill you.
Well, except I knew that was why I agreed to come back. I was like, I got 3 months. And the head writer was like, look, we got all I need is 3 months because I'm going to kill you at the end. I go, perfect. Let's do this.
I got a little time this spring to knock it out, right?
We'll squeeze it in between, X movie and Y movie, and it'll be great.
So how do you were doing that for a while. How did the production side come to play then with you and your brother?
Well, to go back to, how I first started producing, working for a producer, I never stopped doing that, And to the extent I could while I was on a show, or on, that was on that soap opera song. But to the extent I could do that, I optioned books, or I helped pay for scripts. I was always working on projects with other people and outside, companies and individuals. And towards the end of like 2011, 2012, I started thinking, and I left Y&R in 2009 or 2010. And I went up to Toronto to shoot a year on a show called Nikita for the CW. Yeah. And while I was up there, I was kind of thinking, I really need this is the time. If I'm going to do it, I'm off a show. I have a runway. I got to take this. And so I had sold a couple of projects to a company called Alcon, who made, The Blind Side, among other movies. Yeah. And I had made friends with a girl named Molly Smith, who was at that company. Molly was looking to sort of start her own thing and had kind of done that at Alcon at the time. She sort of started her own little division. So we started talking about maybe working together on some stuff, and I had sold a couple of projects there, which she liked. And then my brother, who was a private equity guy and had worked for the Department of Justice, lawyer, but had worked for the Department of Justice and then got into private equity. He was looking to go to San Francisco, sort of follow your path, Jason, and move out from DC. And so I said, hey, why don't you stop in LA for a year or two, and help us raise a fund. And so he did, and then after that, I think he just loves it here. Yeah. He loves it here, and he loves and the company's great. I mean, I think he's more involved in it. I think there's more business, and obviously there's a ton of legal, but there's more business affairs than he realized, and it's closer to what he was doing than he thought. So he stayed, and he's loved it, and he's a partner with us. So it's my brother, myself, and Molly Smith who run Black Label.
Well, I got to say, as someone who I've grown up in the tech space, and I find the living in LA, I find the parallels between like the venture capital world and production eerily similar. They're very different, but it's a kind of a similar thing. So how does it actually work for you guys? I mean, you talk about financing a film, and it's always sort of coming together in terms of multiple parties to fund a project.
Right. I mean, you can do it that way. For us, we sort of raised the money first. Mm-hmm. And that way, we're able to fund a project without having to find a project, then go out and recruit the money. I think that some people do it. Smaller.
It's harder to do that. Yeah.
It's harder, and it's kind of timely. A lot of times, a project falls in your lap, and there's an actor that's attached, and there's a window that actor has to shoot it. And if you're not ready to go, if you don't have the money, then you miss the window, you miss the opportunity. So it's obviously better, just like it is in any business, to be funded and be able to use it at your discretion. So that's kind of where we're at. And how we make films primarily, I mean, everything's different. It all comes in different shapes and sizes. But how we've made most of our movies is we partnered with a studio, so Lionsgate or you name it. We've done Fox Searchlight or Warner's or whatever, and we've gone out to them, and they become equity partners in our film, and then they also act as the distribution for the movie. So that's worked out really well for us to have that sort of formula.
If you've ever met a famous athlete at a corporate event or gotten an official autograph, chances are Steiner Sports made it happen. Here's Brandon Steiner.
We believe that there's magic in the moments that sports creates. We get customers closer to the game and help companies use the power of sports to grow their business. We've been in business 30 years, and we've had multiple systems to keep track of all the athletes and all of our customers. Multiple systems means multiple headaches. So we made the move to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite lets us replace all of our finance, inventory, and CRM functions with one convenient system. Now all the departments can see the same data. And if I have a question about our business, I can get the answer quickly.
This month, NetSuite is offering a free 60-minute business review with an expert in your industry to identify opportunities to turbocharge your growth. To get your free review, go to netsuite.com/Steiner. That's netsuite.com/Steiner. netsuite.com/Steiner.
Well, you made some comments at the start that I frankly didn't expect you to say around category,
yeah.
and which is kind of interesting to me from a positioning standpoint. So how do you think about your, you mentioned your category, or this is who we, this is the market we play in. How does that actually work on your side of the business? So do you intentionally say we're going to try and do this type of film?
No, I mean, I think like any, even if it was like an incubator fund or whatever, with tech company, you evaluate the company and, where it's at, if it's viable to put money into. And I mean, it's not that much different for a film. You have to look at the property, the subject matter, and then, sometimes attachments, whether that's a director or even a high-end writer or obviously a high-end piece of talent, that affects the value of the movie and what you can, there's a foreign sales game, which is boring to go into, but, internationally you can get foreign sales up front, so you can sort of mitigate your risk. You can, you can get money up front against your budget by selling off certain territories or all of your foreign territories, depending on what you want to do. And then just play the domestic game, play, how your film's going to do in the domestic audience. So, you just have to evaluate it all around. And I wish, I could say there's an exact science to it or an exact way that films come to us and then we say yes to. That's not really how it happens. You just have to evaluate it where it's at. And sometimes we develop things from the very beginning. We find a book. And we get a writer, and then we, get a script, and then we personally shop it out to find an actor, find a director, find a distribution partner, or an equity partner if we want both, Lionsgate or whoever. So, we do it every which way you can skin a cat.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Is there a type of film or a style that you like more than the other? Or?
Well, I mean, I think, obviously tent poles. The big Marvels and all of those, it takes a lot of money to make those movies. Yeah. I mean, Star Wars and tentpoles are in the hundreds to 200s range typically, and that's a big space to play when you're in an independent studio. So we don't go there, obviously. For us, we try to stay within a budget range. Although we've gone outside and we've even gone under what we said we would do. So we explore it, depending on the opportunity, but primarily we play in a middle tier budget range for a film, and you can sort of you can look at the competitive landscape and say, this did that. It just that's just goes into the evaluation process.
Yeah, so obviously like picking the right team, picking the right creative around the project are key attributes to being successful. What about just managing the process? How big of a role does that play in making something work or not?
Yeah, we will completely deliver a movie, if that makes any sense. It's a technical term, but it basically means we'll shoot the movie, we go through the editing process, we deliver it to the studio, and they release it. That takes a pretty intricate team. You have to have the right people in place to be able to pull that off. So, and we're pretty good at it. Not to toot our own horns, but we're pretty good at that. We've done that quite a bit, and we enjoy it. And to be perfectly honest with you, the filmmaker loves it. The filmmaker loves that we control and keep the studios out of it, because then they don't have 6,000 people telling them what to do, or I don't like this scene, or I do like this scene, or whatever. We give them a small group of creative people to sort of discuss with and debate oftentimes what their vision is and what the final product ends up being.
Were there any films that you've done recently where you really had to protect the creative talent from the studio?
Yeah. Well, I'll say it this way. Sicario, the original Sicario, had 2 endings.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And we had to do that because the ending is so shocking, and honestly, we weren't sure if it would pass. So then, not the one that's coming out. I'm talking about the original.
Yeah, the original.
Yeah. We shot it both ways, and then we all went back and watched it, and we all on our side said, it's shocking, but it's so good, And then the studio saw it, and to their credit, they agreed immediately, which I didn't. I thought they would think it's just we jumped over the line. But everybody who said no, if you watch the movie and really understand it, you sort of understand why he does what he does. Yeah. I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen it.
It's a great flick. You got to see it.
It's a good ending.
Yeah. What about La La Land? Because that was one of those movies where I would guess, as somebody not in that business, that a musical.
Yeah.
In today's age, it's not you don't see a lot of those coming up. That seems out of the norm, if you will, of what's going through the studio system.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Everybody now goes, oh yeah, I wish I could have La La Land. Oh yeah, no. At the time when it was being it floated around L.A. for a long time. The script did, and people were a little scared of it, as you can imagine, because it was original music. Yeah. Think about that. Any musical we've had in the past, Chicago or Les Mis or I'm blanking. I'm not a huge musical guy, but you think of all the musicals that have made it as movies and been successful, they were all based on a Broadway, run or whatever. It's and so here
it built an audience basically, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And here's some original music and. About a struggling actor and a jazz musician. You're like, well, wait, what? So, look, we got it, and we liked it originally. And this will tell you. This kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Originally, there were 2 other actors attached to it, and it was at the time it was just a tough sell. Not because of them, but just the project in general. So we looked at it, and then ultimately we were like, So we were on the fence. And then Lionsgate got it. And then Lionsgate sort of, at that time, I think the other 2 actors had fallen off. And then that's when they got, Emma and Ryan. And it was like, and then they came back to us and said, hey, where's your interest level now? And we're like, we're in. So it wasn't that hard, when it all lines up properly, right? When your vision matches up with the talent you have, and then Lionsgate being involved in it. We had done several movies with them at that point and had a really comfortable relationship. So it was a pretty. I'll say I could say it was an easy decision. It was an easy decision for us to say yes, but it was a tough decision to make as a company because it was still risky. It was still original music. It was still this, and none of us. And I don't think anybody would sit here and go. Anybody who's involved with La La Land would say, yeah, we thought it was going to do what it did.
Yeah, no, it turned out to be amazing.
Yeah, it was a huge hit.
What about the ending? Did everybody love that ending?
No, it's bittersweet. It was a bittersweet ending, and I remember because you test films. So you go to Pasadena or you go to Orange County, whatever, you test them, and oftentimes what you test is not the film that's released. You learn things from an audience and you cut things out or you add things or whatever. You learn what's missing from a general audience. And I remember we did our first test screening in Pasadena, and they tried the opening sequence to it's actually in there now with where it opens on the bridge and they start singing whatever. And then I'm trying to remember if it was the second test screening, because of the first one they tried it without that opening sequence. And I think ultimately everybody decided, no, we want it in. Little trims here and there, and you fix little things to try to help the plot along. But for the most part, I think it didn't change a whole lot from the original test screening. They tried something the second one and kind of went back to the first. But I remember sitting in the back of that theater, because I like to sit in the back and watch people watch the movie, because you can see heads and you see them looking back and forth and smiling at each other, and you start to get a real feel of how it's going to play with an audience. But I remember, first of all, going, okay, this movie's going to do better than I thought. And then I also remember just thinking, the audience loves it. They really, really loved it. So that was really cool. I'll always remember that, because it's one of those cool kind of you're nervous or you don't know exactly what, and then your expectations change. So
it was great. I gotta admit, I'm not a big musical guy either,
right?
And I went and saw it.
I mean, how much do you love Ryan Gosling in that movie? I think for guys,
he was great.
That's what I always tell my buddies, because they're like, well, I'm not a musical guy or whatever. I'm like, go watch him, go watch his sarcastic humor and tell me you don't enjoy that. Because that's the way guys are. They make fun of, he's making fun of himself and everybody the whole movie, and it's relatable for guys. Yeah. So I think it really helped get that male audience in there.
Yeah, no, it was, living in LA, it was stunning to see actually all of LA in the way that the film was shot. It was like that, that's the LA that I love.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing to see it in the color and everything.
Did you take your boys to it?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just curious, because I took my son. They liked it as much as, they were riveted as much as any cartoon or whatever.
Yeah.
Kids movie.
I love the ending, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I thought the ending was great.
It's very real.
I was watching the movie, and I was hoping that you guys weren't gonna, and I don't want to spoil it if anybody hasn't seen it, but I was hoping you guys weren't gonna do the thing that happens in a lot of movies, right? Where you button it all up and everybody, walks away feeling a certain way. And the way you ended it, that was great.
Yeah.
So I think that was to me the highlight of it. It was like, oh,
yeah,
they did the opposite of what you would expect them to do.
Right.
Which to me made it seem even more original or different in terms of being in that genre, if you will.
Only the Brave was a great movie about the 19 firefighters who lost their lives fighting the wildfires in Arizona. And I mean, by the way, because I was also got the good fortune of being in the movie, playing one of the guys, that was one of the best experiences of my life, just because it was great guys. You were doing something so honorable in the sense of trying to shed light to what these guys did, which was the service and sacrifice they did.
They're real heroes. I mean, they put their themselves in harm's way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what they do, and the way they, not to go off on a tangent, but the way they live. I mean, we did it for the movie version, the actor version for 3 months, but these guys, I mean, they do it for years and years, and they'll go up and fight a wildfire for 2-3 weeks, sleeping on the ground sometimes, and not changing clothes, and literally doing back-breaking manual labor, fighting these fires. I mean, it's saving lives, saving homes, saving property. It's fascinating. It takes a special breed, man. And like the military, it takes a special breed to do that. So.
Yeah, 12 Strong was obviously another one where you guys talked about was a great story about what happened right after 9/11 and going into Afghanistan and
right. Yeah, that was an awesome movie. I love that movie. We got to make that with Jerry Bruckheimer, who is a legend, and being nobody does a war movie like like Jerry Bruckheimer, and he's a great guy. I learned a lot, not only once again from the acting side, but I think more importantly on that film, I learned a lot from him as a producer and as just, you know, an individual. He's a great guy, and he's been, you understand when you spend time with him why he's so successful, because he's so dedicated to his work. He's so, you know, he's so hands-on. He has such great vision for what he wants to do, and he likes to make, you know, he likes to make movies that people want to watch. I know that sounds stupid to say, but he literally the whole time is thinking about his audience, you know, and delivering, you know, a truthful film to them, but at the same time something that they will enjoy and that they'll really, you know, I respect the hell out of him. He's a great guy.
How did you guys, you know, doing a sequel? That was one of the things with Sicario 2 coming out here this week, actually. What's it like actually doing the sequel? How do you, because it seems like you obviously have to have a certain amount of commercial success for the first version.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of times the sequels are not as good as the first, right? It's like whatever, you know, lightning in a bottle you capture with the first one. How do you take that to the next one? And
well, man, I mean, all the questions you're asking are the questions we asked, and the questions, you know, I think critics probably have and will ask. But, you know, it's not a Marvel movie, right? So it's not, you know, or it's not even a John Wick in the sense of it's sort of straight down the barrel action type film. You know, this is a sophisticated prestige, you know, action thriller is really probably where you know, what category you put it in. But, you know, for us, it was more about, I think, you know, you could have easily not made one, you know, but at the same time, I think when you see, in the first one, you see Benicio del Toro's character walk off, I think a lot of us, including the studio, when we made it, and when we saw the first cut of the first film, all of us were like, I want to know where he's going, right? Where's he going? You know, and I mean, I know I felt that way, and you know, so I think it was a decision we all wanted to do. We wanted to make a second one, and it, you know, the first one did well, so I mean, it wasn't, you know, Thor, but it did well.
Not many are.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it wasn't a no-brainer decision to say, yeah, we're making a second one, but
you had a great cast though.
Right, great cast, and Taylor Sheridan, who is, you know, one of the best and hottest writers in town, a great guy, you know, a real cowboy, a guy who understands the, you know, from Texas, and, you know, understands the border, you know, from that standpoint. He did Hell or High Water, Wind River. He directed and wrote. I mean, he's just got his pulse on really gritty, great films like that. And, you know, he wrote Sicario, and I think in his mind, I mean, you'd have to ask him this, but I feel like I could almost answer for him and say, I think he always had it written out as more than one movie, more than one story.
Is this a trilogy?
It could be easily. You got to see the second one. You got to see the second one and then ask me that.
It feels like this is one of those storylines, and this is what's it's kind of interesting to me as like a fan of the movies, but also just, you know, thinking about, you know, how one industry and business operates compared to others. Like, it feels like you have a thread here that you can keep going on, right? And without it feeling super predictable.
Right. And I mean, Sicario was actually, we got, you know, I think we got 3 nominations for Academy Awards that year. And, you know, we had Denis Villeneuve, who's one of the best directors in town and coveted, you know, and Roger Deakins, who finally won his Oscar this year for director of photography. And you have a team like that, and you kind of go, well, you can't do a second one if you don't have them. But, you know, they were off doing Blade Runner. And we found Stefano Sollima, who's done these gritty Italian films. He's sort of he's an up-and-comer here, but, you know, he's been around forever in Italy, and he's so well respected. And kids, like a younger audience, is finding him on Netflix because he's got this series called Gomorrah, and he's got a film too that the younger kids love. Anyway, but he tells action, and he's a fantastic director. Derek Wolski, who's just an amazing director of photography as well. So we had a great team for the second one, and so it didn't the quality didn't suffer. Yeah. I mean, that's a long answer to tell you that the integrity of the film is just as good as the first one, and it's got an even bigger plot and even more action, which is exciting.
Bigger budget,
and and it's just got, I don't know, it's got the same DNA. It's just bigger, and so I think fans of the film are gonna love it. They're gonna absolutely love this movie, and I think critics, surprisingly, because they love to be snarky, critics have basically said, look, it's the sequel we didn't know we needed, but we're so glad we have. Essentially, is the, if I could collect a lot of the voices, that's kind of what they're saying, So I think we're in a good place with it. So we just, obviously it comes out this week. So
Friday, right? Friday. 29th?
Friday, yeah, Friday 29th. That sounds right. Let's go with that.
So the only thing I know about movies when sequels or any movies coming out is I remember there was the Entourage episode where Vince and the boys were driving around like Hollywood Boulevard, or remember they were seeing what was gonna. Is that what you guys do? Do you and Thad get in like the car and drive around Woodland Hills, and you head down to Hollywood and see if there are people,
the billboards, see if people are in line.
See if people are in line. Do you do that?
No, I don't.
No, Jason.
Nobody actually does that. I don't think. You get numbers. There's tracking, and you get numbers. So you're always. I'm checking my email constantly and reading and trying to see where we're at, and there's projections and all that kind of stuff.
It's like election night almost, right?
Yeah, that sounds more accurate. Yeah,
less glamorous,
but just not on every news channel.
Yeah,
it's on my email.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, it's fun though. I mean, I do enjoy going and sitting in just a random theater every once in a while when one of our movies is out, especially in the beginning, because it's kind of like when you test it. Like I was saying earlier, you get to see what the fans really think, or the audience really thinks of it. They're not paid to be in there, or they're not recruited to be in there. They're in there because they want to see the film.
That's cool. What do you like doing more, acting or producing?
Man, it's a great question. I love them both. I mean, I think, I've been an actor for almost 20 years, right? And a producer since 2010, so, 9 years, full time. But I don't know, I think, acting is really rewarding, right? For me, it's a really rewarding experience that's a sort of immediate gratification. Producing is also that way, but it takes longer to get to that result, But I do like controlling things, sounds bad to say, but I like being a part of something from the beginning and being able to grow it and being able to bring people on board and you have this baby, and then the next thing you're letting it go off to college. It's cool to watch that process from the beginning. And you don't get that as an actor for the most part. I mean, there are circumstances where you might be attached to something early, but in my experience, I haven't had that. So they're different. It's a long answer to say they're different, and I like them both, but
different
for different reasons.
Yeah. So what's the future hold for it? What's coming up next?
Black Label has we've made our path into TV. So we have several TV projects that we're just getting off the ground, and so we're going to be doing a lot. I mean, although the business is changing a lot, we're filming TV or even merging at times, through Amazon or different places like that. But there's the quality you can make in the television space now is not what we grew up watching, or even we've seen in the last 10, 15 years. It's really been the last few years that the quality of TV has changed, and you can tell a prestigious story in a prestigious way on Netflix or on Amazon or HBO or whatever. I mean, these streamers and high-end cable networks, they're telling amazing film, or telling amazing stories, and
they feel like films though. Almost.
They do. I mean, I call it film TV sometimes because that's what it feels like when you're watching it. But we've even, to be perfectly honest, there have been a couple of projects where, maybe 5-6 years ago they were a viable film option, But we kind of look at them now and go, well, the space has changed a little bit with the way adults watch XYZ and the way they go to theaters. So then you start to think, oh, maybe this is a better TV series. Maybe this is a better miniseries. Maybe there's a better format for this now. So we've changed a couple of ours to TV and sold them.
Sicario feels like something that you could turn into
easily, yeah.
TV series.
You could, yeah. I mean, I think there's still, that one still has a theatrical value to it, and to the experience for the audience to watch it on the big screen. But at the same time, you could on down the road do a series.
Yeah. Anything else coming up on your end that you're working on that's got you excited, motivated?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple of things I hesitate to mention because we're sort of negotiating a little bit. But yes, there's there's a handful of projects that I'm very excited about that we're getting close to, finding a home for, or at least getting off the ground. And I think I'd like to tell you about it, but I know like I said, we're still talking it through with some people, so I don't want to mention it yet. But
we'll save that for the
episode
next
2.
time. No, I think there's an interesting convergence here between technology and entertainment and the streaming space and everything that's going on that we should definitely talk more about in the future, because it feels like the world between Silicon Valley and Hollywood are colliding quicker and quicker. So
I think you're right.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you very much. I'm excited. Yeah. Everybody go see the film.
Yeah.
Sicario, Day of the Soldado.
Day of the Soldado, yeah.
Theaters on Friday the 29th, so thanks, Dad. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming by. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Grow Wire podcast. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. And don't forget to go check us out on YouTube and all of your favorite social media networks. All of them. Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. There's probably others I don't even know about. Special thanks to everyone who participated in today's episode. Thank you, Thad Luckinbill, for your time. Our production and editing team over at Lampstand TV, straight from Oklahoma City. Also, the versatile and talented Grow Wire staff, Kendall Fisher, Susie Strutner, Kylie Singh doing their thing. And of course, our lovely sponsors, Ring, Blue Microphones, and Steiner Sports. Adios, everybody.
You just listened to the Grow Wire podcast with host Jason Maynard. Make sure to tune in every week for another episode full of tips, tools, and strategies to take your personal and professional growth to the next level. Until next time.